The stranger who pulled me out of that blizzard had no idea he was about to save more than my life. 3 weeks later, I would have to choose between the career I'd spent years chasing and the cowboy who quietly became my home. The first warning came just outside Idaho Falls. Winter storm advisory. Travel not recommended after 5 p.m. I glanced at the notification on my dashboard screen and laughed to myself. The weather app had promised light snow all morning. Nothing unusual. Nothing a four-wheel drive Jeep couldn't handle. I should have listened to the warning. If I had turned around right then, I never would have met Beau, and maybe my heart would have stayed safe. Instead, I kept driving north toward Jackson Hole, Wyoming. My name is Logan Carter. I'm 26 years old, a travel photographer from Seattle, and 3 weeks before this road trip, I thought I had my life figured out. I was wrong. 6 years. That's how long I'd spent building my career. Magazine features, tourism campaigns, brand sponsorships, thousands of followers who thought my life looked perfect through a camera lens. None of them knew I'd spent the last 2 years slowly losing myself trying to make someone else happy. When my boyfriend, Ryan, finally admitted he'd been seeing someone else for months, he didn't even look guilty. "You love chasing sunsets more than you love people," he told me while stuffing clothes into a suitcase. "I got tired of waiting for you to be present." Those words stayed with me long after he slammed the apartment door. First, I blamed him. Then I blamed myself. Eventually, I realized neither of us had been happy for a long time still. Knowing something is over doesn't stop it from hurting. For nearly 3 weeks, I couldn't pick up my camera. The apartment felt too quiet. Seattle felt too crowded. Every street reminded me of memories I didn't want anymore. So I did what photographers do best. I packed my Jeep, loaded every camera body, every lens, every drone battery I owned, canceled every meeting, ignored every email, and pointed my GPS toward Wyoming. No schedule. No clients. No expectations. Just mountains, snow, and enough silence to hear myself think again. By late afternoon, civilization had disappeared behind me. The highway twisted between towering pine forests covered in fresh snow. Golden sunlight spilled across distant mountain peaks like someone had poured liquid fire over them. It was breathtaking. Without thinking, I pulled onto a scenic overlook. The air bit at my cheeks the second I stepped outside. I grabbed my camera. Click. The mountains. Click. A herd of elk crossing an open field. Click. Snow collecting on the branches of enormous pine trees. For the first time in weeks, I smiled. Maybe this trip really was exactly what I needed. As I climbed back into the Jeep, my phone buzzed. My younger sister, Emma. I answered using Bluetooth. "So," she said immediately, "have you decided to become a mountain man forever?" I laughed. "I've been gone less than 12 hours. "I know. Mom already thinks you've joined a cult." "Tell Mom the only cult here is nature." Emma snorted. "Seriously, Logan, are you okay?" The question lingered between us. I looked through the windshield at endless white mountains. "I don't know yet." She stayed quiet. "You don't have to figure everything out this week," she finally said. "You just have to breathe." "I know. And don't fall in love with some mysterious cowboy." I rolled my eyes. "This isn't a Hallmark movie." "No. No." "Good. Because those handsome ranch guys are dangerous." "I'll keep that in mind." Neither of us knew how funny those words would become an hour later. Everything changed. The sky darkened so quickly it felt unnatural. Gray clouds swallowed the mountains. The wind picked up. Snowflakes drifted lazily across the windshield. Then hundreds. Within minutes, they became a blinding white wall. What the? The road vanished. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. I slowed to 20 miles an hour. The windshield wipers fought desperately against thick, wet snow. Another weather alert flashed across the dashboard. Blizzard warning. Seek shelter immediately. My stomach tightened. The GPS showed the nearest town almost 30 miles away. There was nothing around me except forest. No gas stations. No cabins. No lights. Just white. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. "You've driven in snow before," I muttered. "But not like this." A powerful gust slammed into the side of the Jeep. The tires slipped. I corrected. Too much. The back end fishtailed. My heartbeat exploded. "No, no, no." The Jeep spun. Everything outside became a blur of snow and pine trees. The world tilted violently. Then, crash. Metal screamed. Glass shattered. The seatbelt locked against my chest as the Jeep slid off the road and down a shallow embankment before finally slamming into a cluster of small trees. Silence. My ears rang. The engine died. For several long seconds, I couldn't move. A sharp pain shot through my left leg. Blood trickled from a cut above my eyebrow. I reached for my phone. The screen flickered. 1% battery. No signal. Then, black. The phone died. Perfect. Outside, snow continued piling against the windows. The driver's door refused to open. The passenger door finally gave after several hard kicks. The freezing wind hit me like a punch. I stumbled out, my injured leg nearly giving out beneath me. The road was nowhere in sight. The snowfall erased everything. I looked around desperately. Nothing.
No headlights.
No buildings.
No voices.
Just endless white. I knew enough about winter survival to understand the danger. If I wandered into the forest, I'd probably never find the road again. If I stayed with the Jeep, I climbed back inside to escape the wind. The heater no longer worked. Cold crept into the cabin inch by inch. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. I rubbed my hands together. My breathing became visible. The temperature kept dropping. For the first time in my life, I genuinely wondered if I was going to die alone. My thoughts drifted to Emma, to Mom, to all the photos still sitting unedited on my hard drive, to every dream I'd put off because I thought I had more time. Then, very faintly, somewhere beyond the screaming wind, I heard something. Not an engine, not a car. A low mechanical hum, growing louder, getting closer. I held my breath. Headlights suddenly pierced through the swirling snow. Someone was out there, and they were heading straight toward me. The headlights stopped just a few feet from my wrecked Jeep. For one terrifying second, I thought I was imagining them. Then the engine shut off. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out into the blizzard. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with broad shoulders wrapped in a heavy brown ranch jacket dusted with snow. A black knit beanie covered most of his dark hair, but I could still see loose strands blowing across his forehead. He carried a powerful flashlight in one hand and moved through the storm with the confidence of someone who had spent his entire life in these mountains. He wasn't panicked. He wasn't rushing. He looked like he belonged here. The beam of his flashlight landed on my face. "There you are," he called over the wind. His voice was deep and calm. "I saw your tire tracks disappear off the road." Relief hit me so hard my knees nearly gave out. I thought no one was coming. He reached me in seconds. "You hurt." "My leg." He crouched without hesitation, brushing snow off my jeans before carefully checking my ankle. "You hit your head too." "I've had better afternoons." A small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Good." I frowned. "Good. If you're making jokes, you're probably not dying." Despite everything, I laughed. It hurt, but it was the first genuine laugh I'd had in weeks. "I'm Beau," he said, extending a gloved hand. "Logan." His grip was warm despite the freezing temperature. "We need to move. Now." He looked toward the highway where the wind was becoming even stronger. "This storm's getting worse. My Jeep can wait. My camera gear can also wait. But, Logan," his voice became firmer, "you can replace a camera." He looked directly into my eyes. "You can't replace you." The words settled somewhere deep inside me. Without another argument, I nodded. Beau led me toward a large utility vehicle parked on the shoulder of the highway, a rugged side-by-side fitted with snow tracks instead of wheels. "I use this to check fences during storms," he explained while helping me climb inside. "I almost skipped tonight." "What changed your mind?" "My dog." I blinked. "What?" He wouldn't stop barking. I looked toward the back seat. A golden retriever wagged his tail enthusiastically before resting his head on my shoulder, as if we'd known each other forever. You've got to be kidding.
Beau chuckled.
His name's Scout. I scratched behind the dog's ears. So basically, he saved my life. Scout barked once. I think he agrees. For the first time since the crash, the fear began to fade. The drive through the storm felt unreal. Snow swallowed everything beyond the headlights. The world had been reduced to white silence. Beau drove with effortless confidence, occasionally pointing toward landmarks I couldn't even see. Creek's over there. He pointed left. I'll take your word for it. He laughed quietly. You'll see it when the weather clears. If the weather clears. It always does. His certainty was oddly comforting. So, he asked after a minute, what brings a photographer this far from Seattle? In January, I stared out the window, trying to outrun a bad year. He nodded once, didn't ask another question. I appreciated that more than I expected. Most people wanted details.
Beau respectait silence.
Somehow, that made talking easier. I got cheated on. The words surprised even me. They left. They found someone else.
I'm sorry.
I thought I'd be over it by now. You don't look over it. I laughed softly. I guess I'm not. He kept his eyes on the road. Heartbreak doesn't follow a schedule. Simple. Honest. Exactly what I needed to hear. Nearly 40 minutes later, warm yellow lights appeared through the falling snow. A beautiful ranch house stood beneath towering pine trees, its windows glowing against the darkness. Nearby sat an enormous red barn, several horse stables, and wooden fences disappearing beneath fresh snow. The entire place looked like something from a Christmas movie. This is yours. My grandparents built it. It's incredible. It mostly keeps me busy. He parked beside the house. The second we stepped inside, warm air wrapped around me like a blanket. The smell of burning cedar filled the room. A stone fireplace crackled in the living room. Scout immediately curled up beside it. I hadn't realized how cold I'd become until that moment. My entire body began shaking.
Beau noticed instantly. Sit.
I obeyed. He disappeared down the hallway before returning with thick blankets and a first aid kit. You always rescue strangers? You'd be surprised how many tourists underestimate Wyoming. He carefully cleaned the cut above my eyebrow. His movements were gentle, patient. When he rolled up my pant leg to examine my ankle, I instinctively sucked in a breath. It hurts. A little. He raised an eyebrow. That's the face people make when it's more than a little. I smiled sheepishly. Guilty. After checking the swelling, he wrapped the ankle with an elastic bandage. I don't think it's broken. That's good. But you're definitely not hiking anywhere. I wasn't planning to. He stood. I'll grab some ice. Watching him disappear into the kitchen, I couldn't help noticing something. The house felt lived in. Not fancy. Not perfect. Just warm. Family photos lined the walls. Old cowboy hats hung near the front door. A guitar rested beside the fireplace. Books were stacked beside a worn leather chair. Every corner told a story. It was the kind of home that made you want to stay longer than you'd planned. Later that evening, Beau returned carrying 2 bowls of homemade beef stew and fresh cornbread. I hope you're hungry. I would have eaten cardboard at this point. He laughed. Good. This tastes better. We ate at the large wooden kitchen table while snow pounded against the windows. This is amazing. My grandma's recipe. I suddenly understand why people move to Wyoming. You've been here less than 2 hours. I stand by my statement. He smiled again. There was something different about his smiles. They never felt forced. Never performed. They appeared quietly, like sunrise. Halfway through dinner, Beau's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen before answering. Yeah. He listened for nearly a minute. His expression grew more serious. I figured. Another pause. I'll let him know. He ended the call. I looked up. Everything okay? That was the county sheriff. A knot formed in my stomach. My Jeep. They found it. I let out a relieved breath. So they can tow it tomorrow?
Beau hésita-t-elle.
The roads are officially closed. What? The blizzard's worse than they expected. He slid his phone across the table. The emergency alert covered the screen. All highways into and out of Teton County closed until further notice. Expected reopening, 3 to 5 days. I stared at the message. So you're not going anywhere for a while. I looked toward the snow-covered windows, then back at Beau. I don't exactly have a hotel reservation. You don't need one. What do you mean? He leaned back in his chair as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I've got 3 empty guest rooms. I hesitated. I can't impose on you. It's not an imposition. I barely know you. True. He smiled. But I know enough. What does that mean? I know you're injured. I know the roads are closed. And I know Scout already decided you're staying. As if on cue, the golden retriever walked over and dropped his favorite tennis ball directly into my lap.
Beau looked.
See, I looked at the dog, then at the cowboy sitting across from me. Somehow, for the first time since my life had fallen apart, the idea of staying somewhere didn't feel like being trapped. Felt like maybe I had arrived exactly where I was supposed to be. The next morning, I woke to complete silence. For a second, I forgot where I was. Then I saw snow drifting lazily past the bedroom window. The guest room smelled faintly of cedarwood, and a thick handmade quilt covered me from chest to feet. My injured ankle still ached, but not nearly as much as it had the night before. A gentle knock came from the door. You awake?
Beau.
Yeah. The door opened just enough for him to peek inside. Coffee? I smiled. Now you're speaking my language. I figured. 20 minutes later, I limped into the kitchen wearing one of Beau's oversized flannel shirts and a pair of sweatpants he'd found in the guest closet. They're huge, I joked. They fit me. Exactly my point. He laughed while pouring coffee into 2 mugs. The sound surprised me. Beau didn't laugh often, but when he did, it filled the room. Scout wandered over and rested his head against my leg, demanding attention before I'd even taken my first sip of coffee. I think he likes you more than me already, Beau said. I have that effect on handsome guys. Beau nearly choked. On his coffee. So the dog counts now? I wasn't talking about Scout. For the first time since we'd met, the quiet cowboy actually blushed. His ears turned slightly pink before he looked away with an embarrassed smile. I pretended not to notice. By noon, the storm had eased enough that the sky finally began to clear. Fresh snow blanketed everything in sparkling white. The ranch looked even more beautiful than it had the night before. It didn't look real. It looked like a postcard. You ready? Beau asked. For what? He tossed me a thick winter coat. Come meet the family. I thought you lived alone.
Ido.
He grinned. I meant the horses. The barn was enormous. Warm air greeted us the second Beau slid open the heavy wooden doors. Several horses lifted their heads as we walked inside. A beautiful black stallion walked straight toward Beau, gently nudging his shoulder. This handsome guy is Duke. The horse snorted proudly. I think he knows he's handsome. He definitely does. One by one, Beau introduced every horse by name. Maple, Blue, Rusty, Willow. Each had a completely different personality. You remember all of them? I raised most of them. The way he looked at the animals, I'd never seen anything like it. It wasn't ownership. It was love. Real love. You trust them completely, I said. They've never lied to me. Something in his voice changed. The words weren't really about horses. Before I could ask what he meant, Scout suddenly barked and ran toward one of the back stalls. A young colt had somehow managed to wedge one of its legs between 2 wooden rails. Oh, buddy.
Beau réactait d'instant-lit.
He knelt beside the frightened animal, speaking in a calm, gentle voice. It's okay. We've got you. The colt continued panicking. Without thinking, I moved beside Beau. What do you need? Hold his head. Like this. Perfect. Together, we carefully freed the colt without causing any further injury. The moment it stood safely again, it nuzzled Beau's shoulder before trotting after its mother. I let out a relieved breath. You do this often? Animals don't care if you're having a bad day. He smiled softly. They still need you. I looked at him. Maybe that explained Beau better than anything else ever could. That afternoon, I followed Beau around the ranch with my camera. At first, I asked permission before taking pictures. Eventually, he stopped noticing, which made the photos even better.
Beau repairing a wooden fence.
Beau brushing Duke's mane. Beau laughing when Scout stole one of his gloves. Beau standing against the snowy mountains while the afternoon sun painted everything gold. Every picture felt honest. No posing. No pretending. Just him. You make me look better than I actually do, he said after I showed him one of the images.
No.
I lowered the camera. I just photograph what everyone else misses. For a moment, neither of us spoke. His blue eyes stayed on mine just a little longer than normal. Then Scout barked loudly, breaking whatever that moment had almost become. The following day, Beau surprised me again. You've never ridden a horse? Unless you count the pony ride at a county fair when I was 8. I don't. I figured. Come on. I'm pretty sure this is how people in horror movies die. They also usually ignore the guy who's lived here his whole life. Fair point. An hour later, I was sitting awkwardly on Willow while Beau walked beside us holding the reins. I look ridiculous. You look terrified. That's because I'm sitting 8 feet off the ground. You're 6 inches off the saddle. It feels like 8 feet. His laugh echoed across the snowy field. Gradually, my fear disappeared. By the end of the lesson, I was riding without him holding the reins. You learn fast. I had a good teacher. He looked away. Thanks. The compliment clearly embarrassed him. That evening, the electricity went out. The entire ranch went dark. A second later, the backup generator kicked on, powering only a few lights and the heating system. Guess dinner's changing, Beau said. Instead of cooking inside, he built a fire in the massive stone fireplace. We roasted steaks over the open flames. Scout slept between us. Outside, snow continued falling gently against the windows. Inside, everything felt warm, comfortable, safe. You ever think about leaving Wyoming? I asked. Once. What happened? I came back. That bad. I realized home isn't always exciting. He stared into the fire. But peace is underrated. I understood exactly what he meant. For years, I chased bigger cities, better jobs, more followers, more money. I'd forgotten what peace even felt like. Until now. On the 4th morning, my ankle felt almost normal again. I stepped onto the porch with my camera just before sunrise. The mountains glowed pink beneath the early morning light. It was one of the most beautiful scenes I'd ever photographed. As I adjusted my lens, movement caught my eye. Beau stood near the horse pasture, completely unaware I was watching. Duke rested his head against Beau's shoulder while Scout sat faithfully beside him. The sunrise painted all three in warm shades of orange and gold. Without thinking, I lifted my camera. Click. The image took my breath away. Not because of the lighting, not because of the mountains, because Beau looked happy, completely, genuinely happy. I smiled to myself. Maybe that was my favorite photograph I'd ever taken. Then the distant sound of an approaching truck echoed across the quiet ranch. Beau looked toward the entrance. His relaxed expression vanished instantly. A black pickup rolled through the ranch gates. The driver climbed out with effortless confidence, carrying a familiar grin that suggested he didn't believe in personal boundaries. Before I could even ask who he was, the man walked straight up to Beau, wrapped both arms around him, and hugged him like he'd never left. My smile disappeared. Something twisted painfully inside my chest. The stranger finally stepped back, flashing Beau an easy smile. "I've missed you." Then he noticed me standing on the porch. His eyes narrowed ever so slightly. "So," he said with a smirk, "this must be the photographer." For reasons I couldn't explain, I suddenly had a feeling my peaceful stay at the ranch was about to become a whole lot more complicated. The stranger extended his hand toward me with an easy smile. Mason Walker. I shook it. Logan. So you're the guy Beau rescued. His smile never reached his eyes. I've heard a lot about you. I glanced at Beau. You have.
Beau frowned.
I've mentioned your name once. Mason laughed. Guess I pay attention. Something about him made me uncomfortable. He was charming. Too charming. The kind of person who knew exactly what to say and exactly when to say it. I brought those fencing supplies you needed, Mason said, looking at Beau. And I figured we could grab dinner afterward. Beau rubbed the back of his neck. I don't think that's a good idea. Come on. It's been months. I said no. For just a second, Mason's smile disappeared. Then it returned as if nothing had happened. Still stubborn. He lightly punched Beau's shoulder before walking toward his truck. I'll unload the supplies. As soon as he was out of earshot, I looked at Beau. Friend.
Beau sighed.
Complicated. I figured. He didn't say anything else. The next 2 days should have been perfect. The roads were still closed. The sun finally came out. Snow sparkled beneath bright blue skies. But something had changed. Mason found an excuse to visit the ranch every single day. Sometimes he brought feed. Sometimes tools. Sometimes paperwork. Always with the same confident smile. Always acting like he belonged there. One afternoon, I was photographing Duke near the barn when I heard laughter. I looked over. Mason had somehow convinced Beau to smile. Then he wrapped an arm around Beau's shoulders while showing him something on his phone. I felt my stomach twist. It was ridiculous. I'd known Beau for less than a week. I had absolutely no claim on him. Still, seeing another man touch him bothered me more than I wanted to admit. Scout wandered over and rested against my leg. Laugh all you want, I muttered. The dog gets it. Scout simply wagged his tail. That evening, Beau found me editing photos by the fireplace. You've been quiet today. I'm just tired. He studied me for a moment.
No.
What? You're avoiding me. I'm not. You are. I looked away. It's nothing. He sat beside me, close enough that our shoulders almost touched. If I did something wrong, you didn't. Then tell me what's bothering you. I almost told him. Instead, I smiled. It's really nothing. He looked disappointed, but he didn't push. The following afternoon, Mason caught me alone outside the barn. You like him. The words hit me like cold water. I don't know what you're talking about. You don't have to. He leaned casually against the fence. I've known Beau for years. So I recognized that look. I crossed my arms. And what look is that? The one that says you're already imagining a future. I stayed silent. Mason smiled sympathetically. I'd be careful. Why? Because Beau has a habit of pushing people away. I frowned. He doesn't seem like that. He didn't seem like the kind of guy who'd break my heart either. The sentence hung in the air. You two dated? For almost 3 years. That surprised me. I loved him. He looked down briefly. But ranch life always came first. He chose this place over us. Mason looked back at me. I'd hate to see someone else get hurt. Then he walked away, leaving those words echoing inside my head. That night I couldn't sleep. Every smile Beau had given me, every quiet conversation, every moment we'd shared, suddenly felt uncertain. Was I just another temporary visitor? Was Mason right? The next morning, my phone finally buzzed for the first time in days. Signal. Dozens of missed notifications appeared instantly. Emails, messages, voicemails. One email immediately caught my attention. Northwest Outdoor Magazine. Subject: Photography Director Position. My heartbeat quickened. I opened it. After reviewing your portfolio, we'd like to officially offer you the position beginning next month in Seattle. I stared at the screen. This was my dream job. The position photographers spent years trying to get. A full salary, international assignments, creative freedom, everything I'd ever worked toward. So why didn't I feel excited? That afternoon, while returning from the equipment shed, I heard voices coming from inside Beau's workshop. The door wasn't completely closed. I froze. Mason was inside. "So," Mason said, "have you finally decided?" A long silence followed. Then Beau answered quietly, "Maybe it's for the best." My heart dropped. Mason laughed softly. "I knew you'd come around. You deserve someone who understands this life. I'll handle the rest." That was all I heard. I didn't stay long enough to hear anything else, because my chest already hurt too much. Maybe Mason had been right. Maybe Beau was giving them another chance. Maybe I'd imagined everything between us. The shared smiles, the horse rides, the late-night conversations, the way he'd looked at me. Maybe I'd only seen what I wanted to see. I packed before sunrise. Every camera, every lens, every piece of clothing. Scout sat in the doorway watching me.
"I'm sorry, Bobby."
He whimpered. A soft knock came at the bedroom door. It was Beau. "I made breakfast. I actually need to leave early." His forehead creased. "The roads only opened 20 minutes ago." "I know. You don't have to rush."
Ido.
The silence between us felt heavier than the snow outside. "You never answered my question." "What question?" "Why you've been pulling away." I forced a smile. "I guess my trip's over." His blue eyes searched mine. "Is that really it?" I wanted him to stop me, to explain, to tell me I'd misunderstood. Instead, neither of us spoke. After a long moment, Beau quietly handed me a small paper bag. I packed sandwiches. I looked at it. "You remembered my favorite. You said turkey and cheddar on the second day." He remembered. Of course he remembered. That almost made leaving impossible. I swallowed hard. "Thanks." Outside, Scout chased after me all the way to my Jeep. Beau stood on the porch, hands buried inside his jacket pockets. Snowflakes drifted between us. Neither of us knew what to say. I climbed into the Jeep, started the engine, looked at him one last time, then drove away. In the rearview mirror, he remained standing exactly where I'd left him, growing smaller and smaller until the falling snow swallowed him completely. 3 weeks later, my photography exhibition opened in downtown Seattle. People admired the landscapes hanging on the gallery walls, the mountain sunsets, the frozen rivers, the horses. They called them my best work. But one photograph wasn't for sale. It hung alone in the far corner. A cowboy standing in the first light of dawn with his horse and loyal dog. The title beneath it simply read, "Home." As guests admired the image, the gallery doors slowly opened. I looked up. My heart stopped. Beau walked inside, still wearing his weathered ranch jacket, carrying a framed photograph in his hands. He stopped in front of me while the room fell completely silent. "I finally heard the rest of the conversation you never stayed to listen to," he said with a small smile. Confusion crossed my face. "What?" Mason wasn't asking if I'd take him back. He shook his head. "He wanted to buy part of my ranch, the part my grandparents left me. He thought I'd finally sell." I stared at him. "You said, maybe it's for the best." "I was talking about selling a piece of land to save the ranch." He smiled sadly. "But after thinking about it, I realized there was something far more important I almost lost." My eyes filled with tears. "Mason also told me you left because you got bored." He lied. "I know." He stepped closer, then handed me the framed photograph. It was the sunrise picture I'd secretly taken of him with Duke and Scout. "I found the memory card you accidentally left behind." He looked into my eyes. "You saw me through your camera long before I had the courage to see myself." His voice trembled. "Logan, I don't care where you live. I don't care if you're in Seattle or Wyoming. I just know that every morning since you left, the ranch hasn't felt like home anymore." The entire gallery disappeared around us. There was only Beau, only us. I laughed through tears. "So, you drove almost 900 miles just to tell me that?" He smiled. "I would have driven 9,000. I closed the distance between us. You know, I was hoping this was a Hallmark movie." He laughed. You said it wasn't. I was wrong. Then, without another word, I gently cupped his face and kissed him. Softly, slowly, like we'd both been waiting for that moment since the middle of a Wyoming blizzard. When we finally pulled apart, the gallery erupted into applause. 6 months later, I officially moved to Wyoming. My photography business continued online, allowing me to travel whenever I wanted. But no matter where I went in the world, there was always one place I couldn't wait to come back to. Every winter morning, Beau made coffee. Scout waited by the front door. Duke greeted us in the pasture. And every sunrise reminded me of the day a quiet cowboy rescued a stranger from a snowstorm, only to become the greatest adventure of his life.